what's up, Urban Native Era? I'm your host, Rude Boy, and I have right here Frank Waln. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Mitakuyapi, Frank Waln, Amachapalo. My name is Frank Waln. I'm a 25-year-old Sichungu Lakota from the Rosewood Reservation, South Dakota.
All right, cool. We got our first question. So, my first question is, who are some of your influences in terms of people who've molded your artistry, your musical approach?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it definitely changed throughout my lifetime. Whenever I was growing up on the res, and I was first really getting into hip hop and falling in love with it. Some of the artists who really influenced me back then were Nas, Dead Prez, Talib Kweli. Some of my older cousins were listening to that stuff, so they put me up on it.
Cool.
And then when I grew older, I got into college, I started listening to the Beatles a lot, like musically, because I also produced my own music. And Robbie Robertson, he's a Mohawk artist as well. So those were the main ones growing up, and right now it changes almost weekly. Still, Robbie Robertson's a big influence. John Trudell's another really big influence for me.
Cool. So who's on your playlist right now in terms of rappers or musicians of this generation? Like, who's on your hip-hop playlist?
Well, for sure, Kendrick right now, it's The Pimp's Butterfly. I've been listening to that a lot lately, trying to dissect it and can relate a lot to that album. I listen to a lot of crazy rappers. I like Danny Brown a lot. I, of course, like all the TDE. And then I listen to a lot of eccentric type of music too. Like there's these sisters, they're Cuban. IBA, I think their name is, or EBA, they're these twin sisters, but they just now came out with an album and their sound is really fresh. They also sing in the traditional language of the people from Africa before they were colonized in Cuba.
Yeah.
So, I really like how they blend a lot of their traditional music with this contemporary form. They're kind of like R&B. So those are probably some of the ones I listen to on the plane ride over anyway.
Oh, cool, cool. So, as for Native American culture and its imprint on hip-hop, obviously it's not reached its potential, or it hasn't peaked yet. So right now, you as a personal artist, are you trying to just mold your individual style and craft, or are you doing by other means elevating Native American hip-hop just in general?
Yeah, well, personally, as an artist, I'm my own toughest critic, and I'm always just trying to outdo myself, do better than I did last time, and also trying to just further strengthen and deepen my love for music. I make music because I love it. I never expected to ever be on TV or people to even pay attention to my music.
Now look at you.
Yeah, I know, right? And so I don't even think about terms like that. I'm always just focused on the art and the music because that's what I love, And I also, and this is just my view personally, I don't like to label it Native American hip-hop because I feel like that can pigeonhole us, and these are only Native artists and they can only do Native events and they can only talk about Native things, whereas no, I'm just a hip-hop artist who happens to be Native, and I bring a fresh, unique perspective to hip-hop because of my upbringing and the place I come from and my culture, and I blend that with the culture of hip-hop, so it creates this, this unique sound. So I definitely see, as an overall indigenous hip-hop artist, we're starting to get more recognition, but I don't focus on that too much. I think I focus on myself, individual, and the art, and I think just by us, each individual artist doing that, we're contributing to that collective.
Yeah, just subconsciously,
Yeah.
Cool, cool, and that kind of answers my follow-up questions of like your content, whether it's very inclusive or you just speaking out very specific moments of your experiences.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of both, Like I said, I really don't like to be pigeonholed as an artist or to limit myself, so I just make whatever song I feel like making that day.
Yeah.
And I tell my story and I speak my reality. So of course it's going to touch on issues in Indian country because I come from a res, and I'm going to make songs about things that are preventing me and my family and people I love from being happy and healthy. And just by nature, I think a lot of indigenous art is political because a lot of our reality is shaped by politics and U.S. policy that tried to exterminate us. So whether whether I like it or not, my life is political.
Yeah.
So just by speaking on my life, my music's gonna have those moments where it talks about indigenous issues, and it's gonna be political, I guess you could say. But I also make a lot of songs just about human emotions, because Native people are humans just like everyone else, and we feel and go through the same emotions like everyone else. So, there's very specific moments where I'm talking about issues, say the Keystone Pipeline trying to be built through our res, and then there's songs where I'll talk about, I wrote a song for my mother, and that's a song about a love between a mother and a child, and that's universal. It doesn't matter what color your skin is or how much money's in your pocket, people can relate to that.
Cool,
So it's a mix of it's a mix of all that.
Yeah, because like certain situations pretty much are repeated throughout history.
Yeah.
And so that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Hip hop itself is just a political movement and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, when it comes to MTV's Rebel Music, I know you were on that. How was that whole experience being a part of like this process with a major television network?
Yeah. It was a really interesting project, and I learned a lot from it. I was the first artist they reached out to. It was around this time last year. I got an email from this lady. Her name's Melissa Neal.
Yeah.
And she's actually a native lady. She was the lead researcher for Rebel Music.
Right.
So she reached out to me and she was like, hey, we're doing this documentary. And she didn't really tell me too much, and I almost didn't answer the email because, you know, I get a lot of that stuff from people from outside our communities want to produce media about our communities, and it's always very skewed. So I'm reluctant about that. So I almost didn't even answer. And then I hit her back and I was like, hey, Melissa, could you explain it a little more? And she did. She broke it down. And then when she did that, I learned that one of the co-directors was native. Melissa, the lead researcher, was native. A lot of the people on the team producing the series were native as well. So I felt like they were doing it right from the get-go. And then from then it was just a lot of meetings before the cameras even started rolling. And you know, they came out to our res. And my res and filmed, and we filmed up until October. But even throughout the filming, and even though they had natives on the team and they were listening to us as far as how we wanted our stories to be portrayed, it was still a labor of love, because you know, some of the questions they'd ask would be stereotypical, or they'd ask me like, what's it like living on a res but tell us in only 2 sentences? And I'm like, that's impossible, I can't do that. You know, so it was just moments of that where we'd have to check them and be like, hey, you know, that's kind of that's going down a stereotypical route. We don't want to talk about that, or we can't answer that question.
Definitely.
So yeah, it was a really cool learning experience. And when the final product was done, I felt like, you know, for my story, I was very pleased because I had control over how it was portrayed.
Definitely, that's dope. So how was the Climate Action March in New York?
That was, oh man, that was an experience of a lifetime. We went out there, and we were also filming for Rebel Music at the time. And I went out just to, you know, march and participate in the Indigenous block. I didn't even really know if I was going to be performing. And we marched, and there were so many people on the Indigenous block was at the front. So it was incredible to just feel that collective energy, you know, from Indigenous peoples from Canada all the way down to South America.
Yeah.
You know, kind of fighting this common enemy that's trying to destroy our communities and our land, and to come together in that space. And it was really cool. Some homies I have out there, Rebel Diaz, they're this group. They were running a stage after the march, and they gave me a slot and they let me rock. So that was the scene that ended up in Rebel Music. I got to perform in a couple of shows that Rebel Diaz put on. They're really generous and reached out and let me rock on their stage.
Cool. Speaking of shows, how's traveling been? You know, if you have any favorite spots, good eats, funny experiences?
Well, I just now started to come out west. I just did a thing out in Oregon a couple weeks ago, and you know, I'm from the Midwest. I'm a Plains Indian, landlocked, but I love seafood. So it's freshest seafood I ever had out here. I can't. When I go back to the Midwest, I can't really trust the seafood anymore. It kind of tainted me, but it's been good, man. I just graduated from school in May, and I never in a million years thought I would be able to do this, you know, for a career, be able to do my music, to make a living. So I feel really blessed and fortunate that I'm able to do this, but I'm also learning, you know, being able to travel between all these different communities, native and non-native, and build community, and you know, learn and just meet with people and see what they're doing in their communities. That's helping, and things that aren't working, you know, and seeing where there's similarities to my community back home. I feel like with these tours that I'm doing, this traveling I'm doing, I'm like getting the tools and the knowledge that I need to one day go home and bring opportunities home.
Cool. So last question. So what are the new videos coming out? Mixtapes?
Yeah,
features?
for sure.
What's going on?
I got several projects I'm working on. One of them, the biggest one right now, is my first ever album. Yeah. So it's I haven't really announced the title yet, but I'll let you guys know. I'm gonna call it Recreation Story. Yeah. And it's gonna just be the story about my life growing up on the res, my reality, and slowly how I came to be a little more conscious of society, and you know, and the issues that our people are facing and our history, and how it's all tied together, and me just trying to make sense of that through music. So my first album, I'm working on that should be coming out you know, late spring, early summer. And I'm also working on this cool mixtape project called the Last Stand mixtape. Cool. It's being organized by this good friend of mine. She's a sister, I consider her sister, Tanea Winder, and this other native college student named Reed Bobroff. But it has Tall Paul, myself, Bobby Wilson from 1491. Just a lot of really dope indigenous artists from all over the U.S. and Canada are gonna contribute a track. It's gonna be geared for Native youth, so that's our target audience. So our messages are geared for them and their experiences, because we're going through similar things. So those are the two biggest ones, and also with the new album will come new music videos. And on the album I got Tall Paul, this other Anishinaabe artist that I really like named Mike Jordan, and also this singer-songwriter from Liberia that I met. He's a refugee. He came here when in his teens. He's working with me heavily on this next album as well, with a lot of guitar and vocal work, so it's going to be really cool.
All right, well, there you have it, Urban Native Era. We got Frank Waln over here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. It's an honor.
Yep.
So this is a new song off of the album I was talking about, my new album, and it's called 7, and I'm still working on it. I'm going to perform it here later, but the concept of the song comes from a prophecy that our people have about the 7th generation, and that being that, 7 generations ago, so my generation is the 7th generation that this prophecy came about. And 7 generations ago, our people had this prophecy that a lot of the stuff that the U.S. government was doing to us, and a lot of the things that that colonization were doing to our people, was going to put us in this really dark place. And our leaders understood that we were going to face really hard times and things were going to change a lot for us. And this prophecy said that whatever we do in our lifetime will have most impact 7 generations down the line. So all that stuff that they were going through would have most impact during my generation. But also the flip side of that would be that my generation, the 7th generation, our generation, would be the one to help lift our people out of that. Like people have been working at trying to help our communities for since for hundreds of years, but our generation would be one to kind of come together collectively and give that boost of hope and bring about some change that we need in our community. So I decided to write a song about that. It's called 7. I'll just do a couple of verses off of that. A million warriors will come rushing in. Our ancestors wage war with the government in the spirit of crazy horse and sitting bull. This is spiritual awakening. They feed me lies, but I won't take it in. Let us ride on the lands where our ancestors died, breathing life into a culture they said was petrified. They tell a history that my people don't recognize. The U.S. government should be charged with genocide, spitting rhymes in the time of blood, quantum, and suicide. I survived, staying strong. All those times we should have died. I confess, I'm depressed. Sometimes I can't take the stress, living in this mess, distressed up in the Wild West. My fam suffers, the land suffers. I hate the silence. I hate statistics. I hate the prisons. I hate the violence. I hate these politicians making the wrong decisions. I hate these men that inflict this violence upon our women. They hate to see me rise. I'm on their TV, man, reminding settlers that they're up on treaty land. I did this with my music, a CD in my hand, a microphone in the other. Now watch me take a stand. Bow down to our old religion. Creator gave me a vision, gave me soul, gave me ambition. 7th generation, we have risen. I ghost dance over drums, my music speaks to the young. I do my art for the people, the revolution's begun. We're standing stronger than ever when genocide weighs a ton. I'm giving thanks to Creator and we're suffering with the sun. My mother says I'm a son, my people say I'm the one. My microphone ain't inspire, I fire it like a gun. Higher into their privilege, conspiring with the spirits. My environment require my lyrics be the exhibit of genius that has a plan. My allegiance is with the land, my people agree to care for, therefore I'ma take a stand. My freedom is non-existent, convenient to Uncle Sam. They're colonizing our minds, we're compromising their plans. Our knowledge lies in the land, the answers live in our youth. The cancers live in our elders, I'm trying to see the truth. My brothers and sisters suffer while people silence our voices. They hold our mouth shut, then tell us that we are voiceless, but they just don't listen. Privilege is their tradition. Our people in their prisons, our sisters end up missing. I petition my position to live in conditions that kill my people. Now feel my vision, bow down to our old religion. Creator gave me a vision, gave me soul, gave me ambition. 7th generation, we have risen, we have risen.